a couple of weeks especially he's come on. He had a couple of good plays against, few good plays against Syracuse, and last week had a couple more plays. What's he doing well, and what's his energy like now that he's performing like this?
Yeah, he's been having success. It was great to see him get the interception, but I've seen this coming with him. Continue to challenge him, coach him, put him in good situations, and this has been a long investment for him and for us. It's good to see it pay off. He's one of our better players, and I think he'll continue to get better.
Jordan?
Coach, the last few weeks when we talked to the players post-game, they talk about the second half adjustments, and they just say, we sit around and say no more points, and then there's no more points on the board. Is it really that easy? The guys just lock in, or what's been the key to 0 points second half the last 3 games?
Yeah, we make sure we say no points all the time. It's good that that's happened more than it hasn't. It just, even when you go in a game playing like for weeks like this, when you get into this point in the season, there's no really wholesale changes, right? But the small adjustments, the small understandings, like, whether it's going into a game, whether it's series by series, it all matters. But I think we do have a veteran group. When you have a veteran group, usually the things that you say or the things that they see, those reps mount up quicker. And so the adjustments or their reactions and all things, usually it's expedited in your ability to solve, not problems, but just create answers or, better anticipation. And so, we've got a good group of players, we've got a smart group of players, and, I think it's a group that when you communicate with them, usually there's a really good approach to that.
Jeff?
Similar to Duke, Wake is one of the least penalized teams in the country, least penalty yards as well in the country in the top 10. Does it help in the discipline sense that you are kind of seeing that in back-to-back weeks, kind of a team that doesn't really, give up a lot of penalties?
Yeah, we don't really have anything to do with that, for our opponents, and I think what it tells you is you got two well-coached teams. Dave Clawson's been successful everywhere he's been. He's taken Wake, at a really consistent level, and I think he's one of the better coaches in the country. And I think how do you measure that? Penalties are one way to measure it, and so he's really good. He's done a great job there.
Obviously, a lot of good things on defense in that game. The plays where they got the edge in the running game, is that multiple mistakes? Is it they hit the right play call at the right time, or what was going on there?
Yeah, it's never the right play call at the right time because there's never a play where the edge of the defense isn't important to us. There's really, there was the biggest run of the day was just a big space crack replace, and I thought we had the edge set without the corner as well, but we couldn't get there. The ball bounced. We tried to go make the play, and our guy got kind of tangled up on a block and pulled back and whatever it was. But we got to go make the tackle too. A couple of the other ones, because when you're trying to set edges, you don't just want to run up the field and create a bunch of space because now you have the edge set, but there's a bunch of space inside for the next player to make a play. So you're always trying to set hard edges and firm edges, and our job is to take away all that space, and you can do that from outside in, and but then when you get decent backs and they bounce the football, you usually try to expand, and sometimes the guy's a little bit quicker than you expected. Sometimes they're trying to block you and you're trying to get off, and so those things happen, but definitely something we emphasize, and I would say there's probably about 80 yards of offense on just some bounce plays, and so that's something we got to eliminate.
Corey?
I could be wrong, but I feel like defensive end is one of the positions where you rotate two at a time. It's two guys. Verse plays with Peyton, Turner plays with Edmond. I don't know if that's been going on the whole season. I think most of it. Is that always the case with defensive ends with you? Could you do like Verse and Edmond and Peyton and Turner, or do you like those two guys rolling out there together?
It's really good observation for you, Corey, because it's really happened a little bit more the last 2 weeks. It's not totally by design. Obviously, Pat and Jared play the majority of the snaps, You try to roll, Byron's got a certain play count we're trying to hit with, Gilbert has a certain play count we're trying to hit with, and really it's meant early in the game to sub it in a four-way roll where it's usually not just Gilbert and Byron or Jared and Pat. Usually it's more of a mixture of the two. But as the game gets going, and if we're playing pretty good early down, you're trying to keep Jared and Pat fresh on third down too. So that's how that plays out sometimes. It's not by design going into the game, but based on rep counts and how the game's flowing, at times Jared and Pat will rest together. You're just trying to get them ready for third down too. Yeah.
Stay here with Ira.
I'm guessing that the rotation part is probably part of the answer to this, but what you guys have done in the second halves these last 4 weeks particularly, how much of that is the guys seeing what happened in the first half and understanding what you guys want to do differently in the second half, or how much of it is the rotation, or why do you think you guys have been so good?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think we played 21 players, significant snaps. When I say that, I'm going to say the 21st player was probably at like 15 or 16 reps. And so, that's 3 or 4 series. I think, Conrad, Omar were right there at the bottom of that 21 group but that's significant snaps in my eyes. So when you're playing that many players, you're bound to be fresh. And so when's that going to show up? It's going to show up late in the game. It's going to show up late in the season. And, so I think that has something to do with it. But I do think we have smart players. And, just as the game goes on, I think those things start to pick up a little bit more,
Brendan?
I think before the season you had said that Braden Fiske is someone you were excited for the fan base to see in action. The amount of energy that he's playing with, especially this past week, I guess it's been pretty consistent, but for the impact he's making from just an energy standpoint, I guess what does that mean to you guys on defense?
Yeah, I'm really glad you notice it. And, because when you are rotating guys, when you are having impact, and, the last couple of weeks, third downs, we've been really good, but they're not typical third down. You're still getting a lot of run game and quick game passes. And so maybe some of the impactful stats that, the outside world just judge people on, of sacks and hurries. But Braden shows up in so many ways, he's working his tail off on how he's playing. He's loved by his teammates because they just see him on Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays and the work he puts in, and then that stuff shows up on Saturday. And he's been a force for us. He's somebody we rely on. We're trying to keep him on the field as much as we can, but keep him fresh at the same time and get that balance with Braden. But we've got packages with him at defensive end, that we probably haven't used that much, but we're ready for that. We've got things to try to get him centered up in one-on-ones, and I think the world of him because of how he goes about his business and the smile he has on his face. Plus, he's big and fast.
Jordan?
When Coach Norvell is so aggressive on fourth down, does that give the defense confidence knowing how much the coaching staff trusts them?
We trust Mike and whatever they do, and then we go and react. There's a lot of times those things work. We get first downs, we go down and score. When we don't, then it's our turn. That's how you look at it. There's times that, we need them to pick us up. There's times that they need us to pick them up. Sometimes that our kickoff return team needs to pick up the team. And that's just part of being on a team. Anytime your team's lopsided on one side of the ball or lacks a phase, that's going to show up in big games. But when you're really balanced and you're good in a bunch of different ways, situationally, on both sides of the ball, that's how you wear down teams. And that's how what happened in the Duke game happens. You get a bunch of stops in a row, you start creating some big plays on offense, you take a kick return back. I think that does come back down with how we use our guys in the special teams too, because they're interwoven. You look out there and you got Kevin Knowles playing next to LT on punt pressure. You're punting the football, and you see Ja'Kai Douglas covering a punt next to Rosarie. That's just the best of our team, and I think that helps intertwine the belief in our guys. And whether that comes to going for it on fourth down or needing stops in 2 minutes, I think it's just good and indicative on what this team is.
Chris?
With Wake, how different are they if it's Griffiths versus somebody else, and what does Griffiths do well at quarterback for them?
Yeah, I don't think it was by plan they've played so many quarterbacks. You know, I think, you know, they've run into some turnovers, they've run into some injuries. You know, I think what's helped them is even though they've had to play a couple more people behind the center than they wanted, they've been so consistent in their scheme and their execution throughout years that, you know, they can go back and, you know, they've had a lot of success at quarterback at Wake through Dave's, Coach Clausen's time there at Wake. And, you know, I think they went into the season, you know, with Griffiths as, you know, the quarterback that was the heir apparent. You know, they've run into a few issues with, you know, I know he's been banged up and has turned the ball over a few more times than they wanted. You know, but, you know, they've got a good staff over there. I'm sure they're working to get it figured out. And, you know, I think that offense has had a long history of success. So, you know, it brings its unique challenges.
We'll go to Ira for the last one.
Holding is gonna happen. I know there was a former defensive coordinator here who you know well, who used to say holding's a personal problem to the defensive players when they complained about it. But what do you tell guys, and how do you evaluate plays when that happens?
Yeah, I mean, our job is to get off blocks and make tackles, you know, regardless of the technique. And I know this, if you're comfortable being held, you're never gonna get it called. And so it's just about trying to create block destruction, you know, get back off of blocks and go make a play. And, you know, I try not to even address it. You know, I mean, Mike deals with the officials, and, you know, I try to deal with the players. And just, you know, we just gotta get off, and that's part of it. And, you know, there are things out there that get called, there's things that aren't. And you just keep it moving and make sure the technique and the effort is what you're coaching.
We'll do one last one with Corey.
It's a bonus question for you. It is the second week in a row you're not quite sure who the starting quarterback is going to be. But does their offense change from one quarterback to another? I know you were addressing that a little bit. And did Duke's change much? Because it's not like he lit you up with his arm. So what really changed when Beeline came into the game? And do you foresee anything changing depending on who these Wake quarterbacks are? Or do they have a similar skill set, I guess?
Yeah, you want me to do the Duke one?
Sure, do the Duke one first.
Yes, so
Bonus,
bonus, I'm on you.
Yeah.
But it's great questions. You know, as far as Duke, you could just see the confidence. I mean, they allowed Riley probably a little bit more at the line of scrimmage, you know, and when, you know, the younger quarterback came in, I mean, they were trying to protect him. You know, I know the 4th and 3 play call was just what they thought needed to be done, but, you know, it was a little bit different. You know, the style of the offense is still the same. I mean, the formations, it's not wildcat. You know, when people sub that guy in, that's what's going to happen. There are strengths and weaknesses to each player. I think a play caller's job is to get that player comfortable, but you don't want the other 10 to have to change. You know, with Wake, you know, you know, it's the same offense, but you can see obviously in the past they've had some quarterbacks that just operated at just such a, they were always ahead of what was going to happen because whether it was the skill level or the talent of that person, or it was just, you know, how comfortable they felt. You know, I think as Wake moves forward and, you know, they've had a couple people behind the center, the good thing for them is all these guys have been in the same system. You know, I wouldn't say the offense changes much, but, you know, there were even that last pick game where they had a different starter. You know, you saw a little bit more called design runs, probably just to get the quarterback comfortable. I think you will see maybe some schematic changes that aren't wholesale changes, but maybe something that takes things off the plate of the quarterback to get him comfortable. Whatever that is, screen pass, called runs, call quick games, something that builds confidence.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
See y'all.